I think we're on. We're live. Happy Friday. Adrian Park. I'm Adrian Park, not not the other guy. And with me today, our founder Jay Carter, and I'm going to share my screen, Jay.
Sure.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, let's see if it's going to come up here. Tell me if you see it. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about something today so this fits. So anyone who's watching, just stay with us because I'm gonna share some magazine ads from I want to say like the mid '60s to probably the mid '90s. And we're going to talk about them, and then I promise it's relevant to the conversation. So folks, just stay with us here. Okay, so here's the first ad. Honestly, and it says, honestly, now, did you spend your youth dreaming about someday owning a Nissan or a Mitsubishi Porsche? And then here's the second one. Small penis question mark. Have I got a car for you? And I'm just going to point out that this model, this is probably this is actually a Porsche dealer in Chicago, 312, but this is like early 90s. This is not like recent. Like this is when politically correct was like at its when it's at its peak with like the Clinton administration and whatever else. So this is like 90s when people were all about PC, and Porsche's coming out asking people like small penis question mark. It's a little too small to get laid in, but you'll get laid the minute you get out. Porsche. And again, I want to point out, Jay, like this Porsche is, I want to say like late 60s, like because they changed them a little bit. That tight little, like the body style that's real popular now that people are like redoing. Like this is before that. So this is a 60s model. So in the 1960s, Porsche is putting in the magazines, if it's too small to get laid in, but you'll get laid when you get out.
Right.
Which, I mean, nobody was talking like that back then.
It was there. It's what they're doing is they're using a type of copyright. So like, again, if you're trying to shock your audience and you know who your audience is, right? So think about the people that they would be marketing this to. So, they would be directing it towards high income, high net worth individuals, right? And they want to do a pattern disrupt. So you're in this expensive magazine and you're flipping through it. What's going to stop you from flipping through it?
Right.
It's that hook. It's like, boom, oh shit. And then they see the Porsche and they branded themselves to you. Even if you're not capable of buying the Porsche, they've done this brand marketing strategy that you recognize that and you continue to believe that message going forward. Is like, again, if I have a Porsche, I'll get laid. Right. And this is why that brand, has what it's these kind of messaging, these kind of ads that build that, that attention to the car. When, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a car, right? But how do people, and if you look at it, like take a Lamborghini. I love to use this example, right?
Okay.
Rather than a Porsche. And you take a Honda Civic, okay? Both get you from point A to point B, right?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Why is one person willing to put $250,000 and be really happy about buying that car, where the other person is only going to want to, pay $25,000 and just wants a reasonable car?
Right.
Right. So, and think about the disproportionate difference between the one group and the other group. In the one group, people that will just want a Honda Civic. Well, we're talking about millions and millions of people that buy them, use them, and then we get to this other control market where it's like, I've got to speak directly to 1 in 10,000 people that can buy this or that will relate to this car, right? So again, that's where your copy is like, it hasn't changed. Even as we, move more to a digital print, digital media, like when you're scrolling through, it's never been more prevalent.
Right.
It's the copy inside those ads because we have even less attention span. Back then, they would sit down and read a magazine. You had to even this is a long hook. Nowadays, with social media and like the way that we're marketed to so frequently and so readily, the hooks have to be even better to get the attention to stop people from scrolling, right? Or again, nothing has changed. Like before, they used to flip through magazines.
Flipping, right?
It's the
Flipping
same
is
as
now scrolling.
It's all scrolling. That's right.
Right.
And the thing that I try to explain is that copy will never change. It's a fundamental part of persuasion, right?
Well, and to your point, Jay, so like this, so all these, so for 30 years, because this ad, again, this is like late 80s, this one right here. If you insist on air conditioning, you can always hit the track and roll the window down 160 miles an hour.
That's so good.
So that was like late 80s ish, early 90s. Look at it this way. It's either an expensive sports car or a very reasonable race car.
Yeah.
So like, the thing is that like, so in the 80s, Porsche had a little bit of a sort of like a crisis, identity crisis. You know, they had made I don't know if you remember the 928 and the 944 that weren't very well received. And partially,
that's right. I remember that.
They weren't very well made. So that was why they weren't received very well. And I can't remember the CEO's name, but the guy took over as CEO, and the first decision was, we're getting rid of the 944, getting rid of the 928, and I think the 917. So there were they had three other models, and you know, people freaked out. Like, what, you're only going to have the 911? He's like, that's right, that's all we need. And the reason why he could do that is because they had spent 30 years like basically developing their target market, and they had all these people they knew would buy the 911 because they had bought it for 30 years.
That's a very, very good example. And cars especially are a good example of where copyright and branding is really prevalent. Okay, so here's another really good example of that. If Honda, or if actually Infiniti tried to do this, Infinity's kind of known as like the middle market kind of car, right? It's not but they produced like a supercar. Can't remember what it was called. And it, again, the same thing, it flopped completely.
Oh, you mean Honda and Acura with the NSX?
Yeah, I think so. That might have been it.
Yes.
Right. So,
yep.
And it was it's known as one of the biggest marketing disasters of all time, the most expensive. And the reason it failed is because it's not that the car itself wasn't like, it didn't like meet the, sports car standards and like it actually exceeded them. Okay.
Right.
That wasn't the problem. The problem is that their market was conditioned and their brand was conditioned to sell, mid-level like cars. So when they came out with that, it's like putting in a Me Too, and it wasn't received. And again, they hadn't built up an audience or built up people who have this, this image of, Porsche. And Porsche did the same. Those other models were their attempt to get into the mid-level market, right? So car dealerships found it out. Like, again, if your brand, and what it does is it takes away, it actually takes away business from the proven product, right? So they end up suffering on both sides, trying to compete for a market that they don't belong in, that their messaging and marketing isn't conditioned for. And think about now taking that exact same thing, all right? And I see it all the time with the trades, all the time, where they take and they go and they get a marketing company, all right? And maybe you were doing this stuff. They don't really have a proven product or they're just the guy doing their thing, okay?
Right.
And the marketing company takes their money and they put a message out to the market that, hey, I'm I free quotes. I give everybody a free quote and friendly service. Awesome. Now, does anybody really know who, are you thinking about who that's going to speak to? Who resonates with free? What kind of customer will be moved by that message and take action on that message? Well, I'll tell you right now, because I know from many years of testing and failing, is that's going to attract a nice old price sensitive client that's looking for something for free. Okay. So we don't want to say that. And this is where copy is so important, is that, and again, it's only important for the guys that are out there listening. Don't think you have to become this creative writer and everything to save your business. No, it's about understanding that what the mechanisms are that make companies grow and other companies not. Okay. And if you understand what your values are and who you want to serve, right, who you do best business with, the next step is writing copy around delivering that and giving people that are going to be putting it in the right places where your audience is going to pick up on that message and then take action. So this kind of marketing, by the way, This is the enemy for us. We're going to throw some stones at it real quick. Okay.
Okay.
This is a perfect example of brand marketing. Do you know why?
I think you're going to tell me, but I'm not
All
sure.
right.
No.
So there's no direct call to action.
Ah, yes.
So they're broadly, so
Ding, ding,
only
ding, ding, ding.
only Coca-Cola and major brands can afford to do this kind of marketing. Plus it's going in major magazines and everything else.
Right.
So we only have so much time in, like, when somebody's flipping through, to stop them from doing that, right?
Right.
So in our style of marketing, everything comes with a call to action. The call to action might be in the hook, right?
Right.
So, like, do you want the best roof on the planet? Book an appointment now. Like,
right.
that's a direct response marketing. And if we look at VSLs and if you look at direct mail is a really good example. Just like it sounds, is where the term comes from, direct response marketing, because same thing like magazines, but if they didn't have the call to action and specifically went through some things that would be objections or reasons for somebody not to immediately call or do the call to action, the mailer would fail, right? So I like using these as the examples, but again, they're different purposes, right?
Absolutely, that's a good point. I'm glad. Yes, it is different because yes, we talk a lot about call to action, right?
Yes.
And we talked about it on these lives. Here, I'm going to just hit a couple more here that are. Here we go. It's not a statement; it's a hand gesture.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But interestingly enough, so this is Porsche, right? So I'm going to scroll down. Oh, kills bugs fast.
Yeah, I love that one.
Oh, and here's one. Yeah, it's already survived 10 Japanese model changes. This is early 90s when, the Japanese were making some really good cars and they were selling a lot of them here in the United States because I believe this is a United States or an US ad. And so this is their way of saying, like, putting their middle finger up to, Honda, Toyota,
throwing stones,
and Nissan. Yeah, throwing stones. And then it's about as fast as you can go without having to eat airline food. Also very clever. And again, early 90s. So then here, pivot to a totally different market, right? Here's the little lonely Volkswagen Bug from the 60s. And all it's 2 words, Jay. Think small.
right?
So there's no CTA, obviously.
Right.
I guess there kind of is implied. You think small, but it's really more of a hook.
Right.
And then it makes your house look bigger. And sooner or later, we apologize in advance. We're not male chauvinists. This is just what the ad said. Sooner or later, your wife will drive home. One of the best reasons for owning a Volkswagen. It is funny though. This baby won't keep you up at nights. And then making fun of themselves. Anything this homely has got to be good. And then finally here, this again ad from the, I want to say like mid 60s, Lemon. Which also, like poking fun at themselves. But again, this ad made it into a episode of Mad Men, which of course, like, is how everyone knows about the advertising industry, thanks to Mad Men. And this ad actually made it into one of their episodes. But here's what's interesting. So both companies, by the way, Porsche is owned by Volkswagen Group, which, by the way, is the largest car manufacturer on the planet. On the planet.
I know
that. Bigger than, everyone thinks Toyota is the biggest, but they're, bigger than Toyota by about 10%, about $20 billion. And here's something else. So Volkswagen owns Audi and Porsche. I'm skipping a few: Bentley, Lamborghini. You mentioned Lamborghini, Bugatti, and Ducati. And of course, all of their trucks, Volkswagen commercial. So, one thing I'm just really quick before we move on, we were talking about, I'm just going to pull something up real quick, actually, that I created when we were working together. And this is an avatar document. And, I think, one of the things that, the reason why these ads worked, and again, to your point, no CTA, but the reason why they got the attention of people and of their target buyers was because they were, like, Volkswagen knew who their target, like, dream buyer was, right? They knew that they were marketing to a certain person. And, and so, like, we're talking today about copy, and, like I've had conversations with, again, guys that I rub shoulders with here in Western PA, other contractors. And, it's like, I had guys say to me, well, isn't that just words?
Right.
Like, isn't that just words? And, and I don't expect, look, I don't think it's reasonable, Jay, for us to, I don't expect a guy or, guy or a woman running like a renovation business or a trade, masonry or carpentry or concrete. I don't expect them to really be able to nerd out on search engine optimization and some of those things. Like, we don't expect that, but copy is a lot more than just words, right?
It is so important. And now here's where I'll draw the delineation. Okay. You
Okay.
can very easily get by without understanding any of this stuff. And I almost suggest that you do. Okay. Without understanding copy and marketing, all this, like getting into that. And you'll get yourself to about 1 million, but plan to be like in the business, in the operations.
Right.
It's for guys that want to go from 1 million to 5 million, 10 million. Like, if you look at the top contractors in the game or all around, you'll find out that they are marketers. Okay.
Right.
And the very first thing you learn in marketing, and the very first thing that is the most important, that kind of is the glue that keeps it all together, is the words, because the words lead the image. So I'll give you a good example. If your hook is, I give great service at a great price, and I'm there the next day.
Right.
Okay. And that hook resonates with your target market or your target audience. All right. So think that's grandpa that needs a roof today that's going to call you. Okay. And the image is of, something out in a metal roof, for example. Like, your whole ad is lost. It all starts with, what is it that you're trying to say to your audience? And no matter which way you want to slice it, even if we take it to videos start with a hook. The hook is still the words, no matter which way. Like, we've got to communicate, and either we do it clearly or we don't. So again, when we start to break down marketing 101, and we'll stay on specifically direct response. So direct response has to have 6 things. All right. It's got to be target specific. It's got to be speaking to not everybody. That's bad copy. That's where copyright comes in. It's got to be speaking to 1 in 100 people or 1 in 200 people. All right. Or you are speaking to the audience, but the other thing it's got to do is it's got to explain who you are and what's going on. Okay. If you're not explaining who you are and what's going on, no one's going to trust you.
Right.
And it's not going to have the same effect. Like, we see all types of copy that doesn't do that. The next thing it has to do is it has to make them an offer they can't refuse. So again, when we go back to that, Porsche isn't making an offer to anyone. That's why it's brand marketing.
Right.
We've got to make them an offer. All right. And it could be something small. It could be as small as a free inspection. Okay.
Right.
And you notice I used that word, planted it there for a reason. All right. And then it's got to focus on the call to action. All right. So again, in that order. Okay, whether you're doing it on video or whether you're doing it on ads, it doesn't matter. The frameworks are the same, and they haven't changed since the beginning of people, generating content to persuade for sales. Okay, it's also got to be give them a means to respond, and I see this too often is where we're making a call to action with no means to respond. Where do I respond, right? And it's got to be able to be tracked or measured as an outcome, right? If you don't have those 6 ingredients inside of a advertisement or a marketing piece, and you're putting money into it, okay, you may as well go and light it up and light it on fire. You're wasting your time. And if any part of what I just went through is off and you don't have a way to diagnose it, you remember I said track and measure? If you can't, and again, this is the difference, like one ad, and I showed you even this week, I think we were chatting about the difference between different hooks and stuff. But one ad can outperform another ad 10 to 1. And that's standard. Like, I've seen it 50 to 1, 60 to 1. And those are unfortunately the same guys that go, oh, I tried Google Ads campaign. It didn't work for me. Ah, that's interesting. Was it that maybe the message attracted the wrong client because it wasn't really what you offer?
Right.
Did you ever think that there's a connection between what's being put out? And again, it does take some time to go through, but you need to know, first of all, who do I do best business with? right? Like who am I actually trying to attract with these words, as you'll put it,
Right.
and or these images, because the images follow the words. You can't just have
Right.
an image with no words,
Right.
right? Like what you can't.
Right.
What the hell? Like I can't just put out a picture of a roofing truck and be like, hey, but we do it again. I
Yeah.
told you the story about me going to get my advertisement on the boards. Well, what does that do? Unless I'm
Right.
Coca-Cola, it does nothing. It's zero, right? So where good copy comes into place is it can create an emotion in someone. Okay. And in that emotion, so think about the way you purchase things. Think about like those like compulsive, decisions that we make to buy things.
Right.
Okay. That's really being driven by those words, right? That's being driven by things that have
Yeah.
been planted in your brain that you believe to be true. Okay. So good copy actually can even describe your personality in a certain order, or describe your offer in a certain order that persuades people to take the next step of action. So again, in trying to figure out where this falls into the contracting world, I'm going to say it like this: if you
Okay.
don't first of all know who your avatar is, what makes them tick, and you don't have a mechanism to test that audience, and you don't have a proven hook or line that to be true, all right, I can promise you're going to struggle with your marketing, and you're never going to make it to, you might make it to the million, like I said, maybe a little bit above that, but the real difference and where we see companies that go from 2 to 5 and up is the owner understands marketing. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean he has to be a pro. Doesn't mean you have to be amazing at it. Like, again,
Right.
I'm not a professional marketer, but I
Right.
understand the mechanisms, and I understand the fundamentals of marketing and what it actually is, right? And again, the words that we're talking about here dictate the whole structure of the campaigns.
So I'm going to pull this back up, Jay, and let's just like tear one of these apart.
Sure.
And like we were talking before we went live. So here's the first one. Honestly, now, did you spend your youth dreaming about someday owning a Nissan or Mitsubishi? And there is, by the way, it's not clear because I pulled this off the internet, but it says something like at the bottom, there's still only one car that looks, feels, and performs like a Porsche 911, a Porsche 911.
All right.
And then it says at the bottom, let's see, and we're making it very affordable for you to drive one. After all, we know how many decades you've waited.
Right.
So if we were, what would make this, so like tear this apart for,
Okay.
it's just a magazine ad. So if it
Yeah.
had a CTA, what would that look like?
Right. So
Call to action, and what would, like,
yeah.
how would we make this something that would work online or whatever today, like
Right.
for a
So
contractor?
again, coming back to the words, the first thing that hooks you, and that's what before you even get to it, is you're going to look at, like, you see the ad or you see the creative. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But the words are what really captures your attention, and it goes through a process here. So it starts with the hook, right? Grabs the viewer's attention, all right, sets the tone for the rest of the ad, really. But then it
Mm-hmm.
talks about a problem. What's the problem? Right?
Yeah. Well, it's, yeah. It's,
So you spent your youth dreaming. So really think about who it's trying to track. So, you were growing up being fed these advertisements, right? And did you grow up thinking about a Porsche, or did you grow up thinking about a Nissan?
well,
What
and
do you
to
think?
your point, yeah, you grew up, and to your point, this is like an early 90s
Right.
Porsche. So like this one right here,
Right.
that's the person looking at that ad saw this as a kid.
Probably.
It's
And
a
he was
little
being
too
fed it.
small to
That's
get
right.
laid in, but you get laid the minute you get out.
Right.
So the same
So think,
person that saw this as a kid is now looking at this as a doctor, lawyer,
right.
banker, whatever.
So they're in a certain age group to be able to
Yeah.
appreciate that, like to be able to stop that. Okay. They're going to be in a certain age group, and it's calling them out. And the problem really is, again, it's obvious. Like it's a form of copy, is that it's pointing out to you, did you dream of a Nissan or a Mitsubishi? So it's giving you a push. It's saying, hey,
Right.
and they know that that's going to resonate with a certain audience. They know in a certain demographic, to a certain type of person. Okay. It's not going to be for everyone. Like the Honda Civic person or Nissan lover is not going to get that. Right.
Right.
And then the solution is the creative. The solution is get the car. right? It's saying get the car. Now, the doubts and credibilities, which is like, again, it's a copyright framework, are assumed here. Okay. And the reason they're assumed is because Porsche did a very good job of brand marketing, mass marketing, right? So when you've mass marketed like Coca-Cola and all these guys, they can assume some things. Number one is you know where to get it. Okay. Number two is that you recognize and you have bought in on the brand messaging. So people that didn't buy into it when they were kids are definitely not going to buy into it now. Like, so it's only going to speak to a certain percentage of the audience, and they know that, right? So like when we were having our conversation about like TV, like it used to get a 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 return, right? But it's going out to millions and millions of people, right? But still, advertisers were smart enough to know that, hey, you know what? This is my crowd. You know, here's 30 people in this crowd. I'm going to design an ad to speak directly to them. Now, in order to do that, we have to really know, and this goes deep. This is very deep. All right. This goes into this is forcing you to imagine your childhood or growing up and it's perfectly positioned because all sales is, so if I'm trying to sell something, all sales is transformation. Okay. They're selling a transformation. The Nissan is where you're at. The Porsche is where you want to be. That's what it's saying.
That's
right. So it's making you imagine like that transformation. So where I am currently to where I want to be. And then they're using words, okay, to express how you're going to feel when you're there. And that's great marketing. Like that's great copy. Okay. Because it paints a picture for you in the fewest words possible that immediately gets you to imagine being having a different, situation. Okay. So again, we can apply these kind of things and this kind of framework to our own brand and watch how things change. Those words, like I've seen a 15 to 20 times better response from changing the words in my ads. Okay.
It's
so
crazy.
And I was sharing with you even when we were running campaigns, like how one thing I could think this is going to be killer. This is going to be so good. And then it turns out to be something totally like I would never have picked or assumed that. And that's really where I think contractors, if you want to be smart, is that you use the data to tell you what your audience wants. And then you build your offer around delivering that to your audience. Too many of us come in with the assumption we know what the customer wants, and we don't. And that changes, by the way. Like those trends come and go. So if you're a contractor that's been doing things the same way for the last 20 years, all right, and all of a sudden you're finding it hard to find leads all of a sudden, it's because it's not that the actual offer, like everybody still needs that thing that you do. Everybody's going to need a plumber. Everyone's going to need an electrician. But what's changed is the way that you are either showing up, where you're showing up. And on top of that, there is the copy, the hooks, the thing that makes you stand out from everybody else that's offering the same service. Right. And if you get good at that, again, that's the real secret to you. If you don't get this stuff and you don't invest in it, or you don't at least understand it at its basic level, you cannot scale your business, period. Bar none, because it applies to everything you do.
Yeah. So to your point, so again, to the folks that are out there and they're, doing $1 million or $1.5 million or even $2 million, you can do 1 to 2 million, or up to $2 million and get by with, direct mailers. Cause I did it, direct mailers, putting up, before and afters and, and having basically having a very, unimpressive social media presence. Like you can do a couple $1 million just doing today, right now.
So you said that you can do a mediocre job, throw out some mediocre media, and then get what back? Mediocre customers?
Well, perfect. I'm not saying it's going to be good.
Right.
I'm just saying you can do a couple $1 million and you can probably eke out, 6 to 10% net profit and get by. Right. That you can do that.
Yes.
However, if you actually want to scale, right? If you want to and scale fast, if you, because because I've met lots of guys and I've, spent a lot of time with guys that weren't on the tools anymore, but they were in they had the front office version of that. So they weren't on the tools, but they were running their asses off,
Right.
going from like estimate to estimate to estimate, saying yes to
Yep.
all the wrong things, and and didn't really understand their target customer. And so just to kind of, again, pivot back to this ad just for a second, not that, we don't think this is the greatest ad ever, but it is interesting because, again, like, so let's, a couple things. First of all, Porsche, to their credit, they know their audience, right? They know, they've got their buyer dialed into
Oh yeah.
age, gender, vocation, what that person does. And so just think about this again, this is for folks, folks watching us. So, like, again, this is the early, this is probably like a 92, 93, right? This car that we're looking at. And the person that saw this, again, saw that ad from the 60s about like getting laid. And, they used Nissan and Mitsubishi, which is also interesting because those were two of the big imports in the early 90s. Like Nissan was, Nissan had blown up because they were Datsun, and then they changed their branding in the United States, and they were selling the crap out of cars in the United States. And here's something else to think about. Like, there were a lot of people driving Nissans and Mitsubishis that could afford this car, right? Mm-hmm. Or had just like come out of college or out of law school or out of med school. And so like, there's so many little, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like little, like things that are scratching at their target audience here, Jay, that you don't see unless you start to like peel the onion back and like peel all the layers back at what they're doing, just with, to what you're correctly calling just a brand ad, right?
Right.
Because there isn't actually a specific call to action. At the bottom, if it said, call Joe's Porsche in Chicago at 312-6, whatever,
Right.
then that would be a call to action. But like, but I think that, so like, to bring it back to, to contractors, it's not, and like to what I pulled up a minute ago. So, I mean, I, developed this, again, working with you. And so I knew exactly who our targets were, right?
Right.
We were going after the general contractor that was doing 15 to 50 a year. And we we're going after a certain architect type. Like there were certain people I did not want to work with. And then we we're going after, not just male, but female architects, and generally like, like people that were like, sort of like, Gen X, and boomers, and then, the owners of buildings and so on and so forth. And so again, like, so, in our business, we were able to target a very specific person. And again, like I knew, so our marketing was getting that person's attention, and it was like an allergy to everyone. Like, it was repulsive to people that, were not our target, which is exactly what I wanted, because I don't want them calling and wasting, don't waste your time, don't waste our time.
And that does it. This ad does that very well here too, right? It's throwing rocks at who they don't want, right. and inviting the ones they do want. And that's good copy right there. If it's throwing rocks at the customer you don't want to have, and it says, you stay away, I only want to deal with Joe, all right, and Joe is the only customer I'm going to serve. All right. The more narrow we get, the better returns we're going to get, and more brand loyalty, and being able to charge more, and being able to, like, again, this goes on and on for why you need to focus on these things, and having it off and saying, hey, you know what? This is, I know you, when you were a youth, you dreamed of a Nissan and a Porsche.
Right.
Right. What's that do? What you're sitting there going, well, I'm confused. Like, what is it that you do? Like, what's your identity? Right.
Right.
Like, do you want me to buy both cars? Like, you see what I'm saying about, like, your messaging is exactly what you're going to get back. If it speaks to your audience, and too many guys out there are trying to speak to the faceless person, the customer they don't know. Like, they're assuming too much about what they do know, and they don't actually know. And that's the key. That's why it's so easy to market to contractors. All right. It's a well-known thing in the marketing is it's full of people that will take your money. And I'm sure lots of people listening have had that problem. I've had it, where we don't understand the first thing about it. and then we throw money at people who we think do. And
Right.
the truth and the ugly truth is we're sitting ducks. It's very much a shady business of marketing, because what it actually takes to generate good quality marketing that's brand aware, it takes work and effort, and it takes a collaboration between the person making the offer and the person that's going to present the offer, or have it work. But too many guys are just giving that all to a marketing company, and the marketing company is only responsible to bringing you leads. They don't care if it's the right people or not. They don't even
Right.
ask you, right?
Right.
And this leads to the problems. This leads to the serving the wrong people. Like, if you never
Yeah.
had the C or D client in the first place, you would have never done work with them, right?
Right.
So, I mean, it's something to think about, and to if you're going to start down the marketing rabbit hole, this is the first place you need to understand is how is copy structured.
So I think, so I think we've proven that the words matter, that the words
Mhm.
aren't just words, right? And so, you know, like, help, I think maybe it will help. Again, I'm just thinking about the folks that I rub shoulders with and have rubbed shoulders with. Um, okay, so let's say they find someone to write good copy for their website, their social media ads, et cetera, direct response marketing. And how does that impact? So what does that mean in terms of like dollars and cents? Like, how does that, what is the guy or lady doing a couple $1,000,000 that wants to scale, and they say, okay, I see it. I see what you guys are talking about. And they do it. They hire a good creative or a firm or a person or whatever, and they start putting it out there. What's their experience going to be? What should they expect to see?
Okay, so it's all about intent. All right, so I
Okay.
think that's first and foremost. If you don't really know who you can serve or who you offer, and you're in the early stages of your career, all right, this all is not going to really matter. I'll be
Right.
honest, because you don't even know who you serve. You haven't had enough experience yet to really lock in and be like, hey, you know what? I want to do this kind of business rather than the other. But if you've been around and you've been working for clients and you've got the opportunity to kind of experience different things, and you're really good at doing a specific thing, and you want to take your business from, like I said, that threshold of 1 million to the next level, and you really want to
Right.
make this a business, okay? That's where it's time to invest in understanding first yourself. What is copy? Like, what is these messages? And you develop a core message. And we have again, I can walk you through. I have templates for all this stuff. And I've helped a lot of, high scale owners to get their messaging correct. But step one is to get your core messages correct. What is it that we offer? How do we know that we have an audience for it? And how do we, communicate this effectively? Because it doesn't matter then who markets it. If they're saying the same things, they're buying media and putting you optimized to get your message out.
Right.
But I don't trust them to make that message. And that's not really, again, if you think about it, like, it's like putting your money in somebody's pocket and hoping that they spend it well.
Right.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't direct them where to spend it and like who you're going after, and you don't know that, again, you're going to get what you're going to get. Like, you're just going to get a random mixed bag. As you get
Right.
as you get more mature as a contractor, you start to realize, hey, you know what? Like, I don't want to deal with this client anymore. I don't want to deal with builders. I don't
Right.
want, like, I'm not going to put anything out that says that I'm open for business to those things. In fact, I'm going to
Right.
throw rocks at them. You know what?
Right.
I'll never work for a builder. And I might put that in my advertisement. So, like, if you're a builder, F off, right? Like, that might
Right.
be something that I include in my copy. And
Yeah.
we have for us, like, we don't particularly advertise to builders, and if they come along, they know they're paying it like a premium, right?
Right.
So, another way to look at it, guys, is if you're trying to develop a Lamborghini offer, right? And you don't know how to communicate that you're the Lamborghini offer, and instead your marketing and your copy says you're a Honda Civic. Well, you could very well be selling the Lamborghini at a Honda Civic price, can't you?
Yeah.
Right. So this
Good
is
point.
how important it is, because again, there's somebody that will resonate with the value you bring to the table. So if you think that the client that you're attracting isn't willing or isn't worthy of the value that you bring, then that means that your copy and your marketing overall, the messaging that's being sent is wrong. It doesn't suit the brand, or you've matured. right? And I see this a lot too, where a brand all of a sudden, they're not the same company they were 3, 4, 5 years ago, but
Right.
yet their websites and everything else says they are. Those
Right.
values inside your business has changed. And
Right.
that's where you need to get clear. Again, you don't need a creative to be a creative writer. You have to get clear with yourself, with your company, with your core values, with all of these things that are very important foundation for describing. Because again, if your core value says that, hey, you know what, I'm not, we're a direct to homeowner only business, right? And that's the reasons for that are personal, right? Like I don't want to deal with third parties. I want to
Right.
deal directly with somebody that's making the decisions. That's the
Right.
way I found my business to be suited. Great. Okay. The next one is to decide, hey, you know what? I don't want to deal with young families anymore because they're very price sensitive, and I find I'm doing too many quotes and
Right.
they're not making decisions quick enough. I want
Right.
to, but I really found this guy Jack that's an older dude. He's got money and he's a lot less picky and knows exactly what he wants. I want to position my business to work with them. Okay, now we're talking like where we have to really take it to the next level and know how to only attract Jacks, because that's what good copy does, right?
Yeah.
That's the difference here I'm talking about. And it goes so much further than just bringing in leads. It travels all the way down to what you tell your men, what you
Yeah.
present your company as. What value, like again, when you're having a conversation with your crews, okay, how do you describe your key, like, and what decisions do you make about serving them? Again, here's another good example. You could be doing way more work than you need to, right? Sending out all these texts and emails and trying to support the customer who doesn't want that kind of contact. But
Right.
because you assumed that they would, and you treated them like, a Karen that needs all this, contact, you actually piss them off in the process and they'll never refer you again.
Right.
That happens. All right.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean about being tuned into who you serve, who you do business with, focusing on them and making sure that you understand them entirely. You got to know them better than they know themselves. Seriously. Right.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I was going to say, you warned me of something, and I think, and you said it here, and I'm just going to circle back to that. And that's that, so there are so many like marketing, I don't know, like agencies, that are selling like search engine optimization.
Yeah.
And I mean, I heard a couple of dozen of these stupid pitches, and I just, I said no to every single one of them, because I'm thinking to myself, so you're going to charge us X amount of thousands of dollars a month, and what am I getting for that?
Right.
Like, because I didn't want this just like get dumped on with all these leads that weren't like really our customers, because
Right.
none of them could tell me, oh yeah, this is how we're going to drill down. We're going to drill into your
They don't
customer.
know.
And here's the thing, Jay, like again, so if I hadn't have worked with you and had a little bit of my own self-education on understanding our what dream buyer or target customer is, and then actually identified that, I'd have signed up because I wouldn't have known any better.
Right.
I would have burned probably 10, 15, 20,000 bucks easily. Like before I probably would have cut the cord and said, this isn't working. And so I think, to your point, like, because again, it's not, we don't expect, you and I, and those folks kind of like, I think they kind of some of them bank on the fact that the contractors don't know.
1,000,000%. And even the good ones only have so much time. So like I've worked with some really good agencies that only worked with contractors, and even them, like, if I didn't stay on top of my copy and I didn't stay on top of what they are allowed to say about my business,
right?
Okay, I didn't let them test other people's, what worked for other people's companies on them, on me. Okay, because I would get their results. So if somebody else is, a middle of the road, contractor. Sorry, my daughter's running around in the background.
I can see. Hey there.
Oh, she broke in. I'm in the cage. So if I'm, they're marketing for a middle range, middle blue collar roofer, and they
Right.
bring what worked for them over to my campaign,
Not,
it would
yeah.
fail. and it would
Right.
destroy my image, and I would
Right.
spend a lot of money trying to correct that, right? Because what you put out is what you get back. So
Well, go
again,
ahead.
it's if and this is a maturity thing as well. If I were to start all over again and coming into business, and the first thing that I would want somebody to tell me is, focus on who you serve. Focus on
Right.
the
Figure that
message
out
that
first.
is going to
Yeah.
be sent. Because after that, hiring somebody to it's a non-emotional transaction. Okay.
Right.
And it all comes back down to your numbers. Like marketing, although it sounds like this, this sexy kind of, this mystery friggin' wizardry going on with, great marketers or not great marketers. I'll tell you the truth. The real ugly truth behind it is no marketer knows. Nobody knows. Okay. All we have is basically what's worked in the past, right? What's
Right.
worked for similar brands. But
Right.
it's all guessing. All right. It's
Right.
guessing to find. And just because it works for one company does not mean it's going to automatically transfer and somebody else can
Right.
take it.
Right.
So get to know your message and get to know your brand and who you're serving. And again, if you need help on this, reach out to us. I help a lot of people discover this. And when they do, it changes your whole business perspective, because then you realize that, hey, you know what? I'm only going to focus on a couple of things, because it's so hard to market to a mass market. It's so hard to not have this correct. You could spend many
Right.
years
Right.
just struggling to get enough leads,
Yes.
struggling. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
not because you're operationally you can't do it. It's not because, and you're just banging your head against the wall. And a lot of guys
Right.
just give up. It gets so hard that they just give up. And it
Right.
all comes back down to the simple thing. If they knew, who they served in the first place, and they were to double their leads, quadruple their leads, 4 times their leads, all right, where would their business be? And like I said, I have ads that bar down 20 times difference
Yeah.
from just one hook. The same
Wow.
creative, same everything. Like Adrian, I've shown you,
Yeah.
like when we test our stuff. And again, all of that is preventable. So like if you're looking for a way of really getting some high level value, work with me. I'll show you how to get your messaging. And then that
Yeah.
way, if you do decide to work with any other marketer, you're giving the instructions, you're dictating what they need to hit and what targets they need to hit, right? And again, I'm not going to come down on all marketers. There are some very good ones for SEO
Right.
and stuff out there.
Yeah,
But
for
if you
sure.
don't give them specific targets, they have to come up with their own. And that might not be where you want it to be. You can't assume that they just magically know these things,
Right. Well,
right?
I think I want to go back to something you said too, Jay, because like so I think that sometimes it would be easy for folks that are watching this to hear us and feel like we're being condescending or like kind of shitting on them, and we're not.
Right.
Because again, like I came into contracting several years ago, and took over a 40-year-old masonry restoration business, and to turn it around, and had this experience of again working with a lot of folks, whether it was other subs, other generals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and realized that like everyone's trying to survive, first of all, and
Right.
there were folks, and there were guys that I was other trades and stuff that we would bid the same jobs or whatever, and you know what I'm trying to say is it's okay. So if you're hearing some of this, like Jay said, that you need to know who you are. You know your mission and what you're about, and we've also talked about who your target customer. So I'm going to say this: if you're not real sure, if you never put those things like pen to paper and like put those things out there and share them with your staff and your teams, that's okay, right?
Mhm.
It's okay, and we're not shitting on you for not doing that. We are trying to say that it's pretty damn important because doing and again, I know from experience, going from like doing $1 million and doing $5 million is very different,
Night and day.
right? And you are, and if you're not running systems, because that's a huge leap. Because for us, we had like right around 20 employees, and when I left, we were doing between 3.5 and 5, depending on the year. Like that was like 40 to 50 employees. That's a different company. And if you don't make, if you know, not knowing some of these things, like making that transition and then, you know, and then going to doing, you know, 5 to 10, like where you are, Jay, like those are big. They don't sound like, it just seems like a couple $1,000,000, but it's okay not to know. It's like, okay, I'm not sure what our mission is, or not to have thought about that, but it's okay to hear, it's not okay to not know, hear us say it's important and then not do it if you want to grow, right? If you want to scale, if you want to do some of the things that Jay and I've done, and Jay and I've talked about doing, because again, getting to like doing 5, if you're doing 3 and you want to do 5 or 8 or 10, and you don't get organized around, like do some of these basic things, like here's who we are, here's what our mission is, here's our, like, this is the customer we want and no one else. Like it gets really chaotic. And that's how, you know, you hear these stories of like people have these meteoric, like these rises, they go from 0 to 10 million and they're out of business like 5 years later. It's because they didn't do the stuff we're talking about. Am I wrong?
Or their market, you know, one of the best examples I can use that kind of explains this, by not being connected to the marketing. I've heard this happen like probably 20 or 30 times. They had a good agency. Okay. The agency produced, you know, great ads, but it spoke to, let's say, storm damage. Okay. Storm goes away. All of a sudden the company has no leads, flat lines, right? They have no way to, again, they haven't thought about these things because all along they've been just taking leads. They've been just focusing on selling the leads, and like it was always this mystery to them, right? The other scenario is a company gets so, you know, maximizes their local market. And I went through this experience where I'm doing $5 million in a very small, like rural area, and I'm boxed in. I don't have another offer to make besides, you know, again, coming into some other service. Well, great. Now I'm starting back at square one. And because I don't understand marketing, what's that involve? So now I want to offer metal roofing. You know, I'm doing 5 million in shingles, and I just want to offer metal roofing, not realizing that, hey, those are like, that's a whole separate business. That's a whole different, you know, client base. That's a whole different avatar. That's, everything changes. It's not just transferable. Some of it a little bit, but not.
It's not all roofing.
Right. And again, you have to adapt and grow. Now you can do that the very hard way, right? So, you know, for the guys out there that are at $1 million, they've got a proven offer is what I'm going to say. They're proven themselves that they can operate a business at that, because again, right there, you're showing me that you can work hard, right? If you're getting to that point.
Right.
And then you want to take that business from 1 to 2 to 3 to 5. These are the kind of things. And again, for some of you, it might be overwhelming, and that's okay. But these are the type of things that the only difference between the guys doing, you know, the 1 million or the 5 million is that understanding of, how do I consistently bring in clients? How do I consistently bring in new staff? How do I keep my company healthy? All right. And again, owning that, the better you get at that, like I've told you guys over and over again, you know, the only thing scalable inside your business is marketing and sales. The only thing that's going to lead to your freedom, no matter which way you want to slice it, like you can only be the best operator to about $200,000 worth of, you know, after that, again, that's about the most you would ever pay somebody to come in and operate your business, right?
Right.
Okay. So if you're thinking that way, you have a maximum ceiling price, but is there any limit on how many, you know, can you market for thousands of jobs? Yes. I could bring 1,000 leads in. Right. As long as I've got the systems in place for people to, you know, sell it, produce it, like, then what is there to worry about? Right. Now, again, if you're good at operating, you're good at managing your business, or you're good at getting the work done. Can you continue to do that without understanding anything about marketing? Yeah. You'll have a job.
Yeah, for sure.
May as well go get a job somewhere. The only time it becomes a business is when you can call those shots. You can pull those levers, is when you know how to consistently bring in sales and sell them. After that, it's just about turning the levers up or down, right? You've locked it into your message. You're going to turn this lever up, right? Oh, that's too much. I'm going to pull that lever down. That's, again, it's the simplest way that I can explain why this is so fundamentally important. And if you really want the proof, I mean, go and look at the companies that are look up to the people that have already done what you want to do. Okay.
Right.
If your goal is to be at 5 million, go look at them. What's the difference?
Yeah. What
Is
are they
it that they
doing?
can do the
Yeah.
job better than you? That they can,
Yeah.
they do it? No, it's never that. It's never
Mm-mm.
about that, right? They probably do a way like they do a way shittier job.
Right.
Their customers are way enough, but they do certain
They're
things
better
that
marketers.
you don't do. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
all good marketing will trump everything else. Right. When we've got our hands outplayed, I know if I have that marketing card in my hand, like I'm gonna win the game.
Well, and you said levers, Jay, and again, we've talked about this before, where like I mean, that really is, I mean, I think for the contractor that wants to wants to either sustain in the like mid, 5, 6 million, or is trying to get there and stay there and grow, being able to dial up and dial down like high quality leads that people
Right.
you want to hire you,
Infinitely and
like
scalable. Those are the
you
most
have
important.
it can be it you can that's there for the taking, but you have to do you have to nail copy. You have to speak to your audience, speak to your target customer in the way that they're going to respond, what you say, throw stones at everybody else.
Yeah.
And that's not a should, it's a must.
Right.
You won't get there if you don't do this thing.
Right. Right.
Right.
And again, you can't hire someone to do it for you because they're not you. Right.
Right.
They don't know who you do best business with unless, again, I've never had a marketer, even the good company that I worked with, before I started doing our own stuff is, I've never had them ask me that. And it always kind of baffled me now that I think about it. It's like, how would they know? Like,
Right.
what were they buying? Like, they're just
Right.
literally going out, putting your money on the
Yeah.
table and going, put it on red.
Right.
That's what they're doing. We're not
Yeah,
playing
just-
the table. We're not making fair bets here.
Right. Right.
We're just going out and assuming a lot of things. And marketing is not about it. Like, you have to test everything. You have to make sure that it's generating the right leads. Like, because again, it's easier more now than ever to generate leads. Okay.
Yeah.
It's very hard to generate the right leads. Right. To generate the sustainable business, the ones that are going to pay you on time, the ones like all the headaches you're experiencing in your operations. I can almost promise you, and we played this game before where, you call your problem, you call your symptom. We can almost always point back to a sales or marketing issue. Always. Right. Again, very like once an operation, like in terms of producing the jobs, like it's pretty, it does get complicated at scale, but like at the basic core level, you guys already are operators, right? You're already operating. You know how to start a job, stop a job,
Right.
you know what I mean? Those things in between. And those things become very, like, they're very, there's lots of controls out there for them, right? So when you have a control in place and hey, follow this system and you're going to be able to get your jobs done on time. Like that's easy to understand. Right. Marketing is a mystery because there's so many little things that you have to be aware of. Right. And again, this is where I stress, like the only thing most contractors are missing out on is not sitting down with themselves or sitting down with somebody who's going to extract it from them and getting clear about their core message. What do they offer? Who do they offer to? Like getting very, very clear about this stuff. Right. And refining that and then taking it to a marketer. You walk up to a marketer with all those things. They're going to love you, first of all, but they're also going to get you the results you need. Right. And you can tell them like, hey, I don't want that kind of customer. Right.
Well,
I'm not trying to
spend less money, right, Jay? I mean, you're going to spend less money on, am I wrong?
No,
it's going to cost less
right.
If you know that.
The most important KPI I have, all right, and the one that I look at first before profit, before everything, okay, my cost per acquired customer. That is a unbelievably fundamental KPI for me, all right, especially because I'm, more responsible for the marketing. But if my cost per acquired customer starts to rise, it's an indicator of a whole bunch of things that I'm going to look at, right? If I can keep control of that cost per acquired customer, all right, this is where we build this mechanism of looking at your business as an investment place, right? Again, the work, getting the work done, the job's not going to change a whole lot, right? The way we install a roof doesn't change dramatically, right? Good is good, bad is bad. You know, we
Right.
can apply it to almost anything else. Good contractors, you know, what I mean, they have good trades. Well, how do they do that? Good marketing, right?
Right.
They know how to get in front of the right people. They know how to
Yeah.
be in front of more opportunities than the next guy, right?
Right.
So again, if you think your investment is learning how to operate your business better, good luck to you, because you reach a maximum efficiency for that.
Yeah. There's a
And
yeah.
and
There's
and
a
that you're going to
ceiling.
hit the
Yeah.
ceiling every
Right.
time.
Right.
Guys don't struggle, and a lot of them are out there trying to make themselves more efficient, doing all these other things, but they never look at that marketing, right? They never look at, how do I acquire more customers for cheaper, right?
Yeah, and
How
we're
do
not
I,
saying you shouldn't be more, you shouldn't optimize your business,
right,
but again, that's only going to go that'll only get you so far.
right. It's
That's
not going to
like
make you
there's a
millions,
ceiling. Yeah, right. Right.
right?
So here, final thoughts, Jay. So, um, like going back to again what you were saying a few minutes ago. So, you know, the reason, so words aren't just words, but
No.
these words are like, this is how we like grab the attention of the person we want to buy from us and keep their attention, and then get them to make a decision to call us, hire us, etc. Okay. So I'm thinking again, as you know, like the guy that was on the other side of this a year ago, if I'm watching this going, well, you know, that's not really my thing. My thing was improving the operation and the pricing. So, you know, what do I do? Right. So,
Right. So
how can we
tell
help
me, hold
folks
on.
with this? Yeah.
So this is where I would have to object any of those excuses. So if you
Okay.
came to me, if you
Okay.
came to me and said that I have no values, all right, I wouldn't work with you.
Right.
Okay. That's what you're saying to me by saying this is beyond you. I'm not saying you have to put pretty words together. Somebody else will do that for you.
Yeah.
But if you
Right.
don't know your core values and what your business is going to be, you can't imagine that in your head of who I want to serve and who I do best work with. All right. And this comes right back to the tools. Like, I knew what kind of roofs I'd like to install, and I knew which ones I didn't want to
Right.
install. Right.
Right.
If you can't define that, and you can't extract that out of your head, all right, and you can't be willing to stand by it, you know, and push through and you know, follow through with it, then come work for me, I guess. I mean, that's your future, right?
Right.
Not to be abrasive, but I mean,
Yeah.
again, that's what you're setting yourself up for. Not doing it will, like, there's a maximum level of business you can do, and there's no question of that, right? At a certain point, you have to have these things in place if you want to have employees that don't need you for everything, right? You're not the rake. Well, where do you
Right.
think that, like, do you think there isn't an element of marketing to that? Of course there is. Of course there is. Marketing touches in everything, but it comes back to, what is it you stand for? Who are you? Who do you
Right.
serve? Just like you're asking your customer. The clarity of that message has to be, you know, again, simple and easy to understand for your staff, for yourself, but that's where your direction or your compass is coming from, right? And again, having these things goes beyond just marketing, right? Having these, sitting down and going through this process is going to really dictate what the next 10 to 15 years or however long you plan to be in this business for will look like, right? If you're not creative enough to do that, you're going to struggle in business. And it tells me that you're, you know, again, that maybe you should think of another career altogether. And again, we see it over and over again. Like, why do so many businesses fail in this space? Because they were great at installing, or they were great at being on the tools, but they never allowed themselves the space or the time, all right, to really focus on being a business. And all good businesses have key ingredients. This is
Yeah.
a key ingredient. There's
Yeah.
no disputing it. And we can show everywhere you look, every example that you can find of business trying to get business, you're going to be able to see, is somebody, you know, marketing behind that, right?
Yeah.
What's the message being sent? You know, why do people, like, when you buy a Lamborghini, are you worried about money?
No.
No. Right. Were you conditioned not, like, did you already know it was going to be expensive? Of course you did.
Yeah.
You didn't even need to
Yes.
get the price, but you
Right.
don't care. People that buy
Right.
Lamborghinis don't care about the price. They
No.
care about the image that it presented to
Right.
them. Okay.
Right.
Same thing with a Honda. When people buy a Honda, do you think they care about the price?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Two
Very
different
much so.
people.
Very
Right?
different buyers. Yeah.
So again, think about your business that way. What are you like? Are you selling a Honda or are you selling a Lamborghini? There's a market for both, right? And
Right.
they're both are needed, but
Yeah, and it's not better than, worse than, right?
right.
I mean,
No,
so to the person, person selling the Honda, like, you don't want the Lamborghini buyer, right?
right.
Because they're going to be very disappointed with your product,
That's
right?
right.
It's just because they have the money doesn't mean they're going to like buying from you.
Right.
So,
And the real shame is to spend your whole career focusing on building a Lamborghini for a Honda Civic market.
right,
Right.
right.
So that's where guys get caught up, is they just never get to that point where they understand those mechanisms. Right.
So, yes. So final thoughts here. So for folks that want to, that kind of like have, they're feeling that like little bit of like discomfort right now. Like, I know I got to do this. I know they're talking to me. Like, what should they come and hang out in in school on Thursdays? What's like,
yeah. So let's
where
make
should
this
we
one
point
easy.
them? Yeah.
So we have school, and by the way, man, obviously I have all this kind of training, but if you're just really unsure, but you see kind of some value in what I'm saying, you might be my ideal customer that I can help, right? I kind of made it clear throughout this call that, if you're under $1 million and you're still, finding your space, I have material that will help you, but I'm looking really for the guys that want to scale. They want to go from $1 million to 5 million and above. All right. They have a proven offer. I can help you take this and show you the tools that you're never dependent on a marketing company again. All right. And that's really important. It's a very valuable, but probably the most valuable thing that I could teach is how to actually own your marketing, how to, control your marketing, how to, again, have these levers. So you're never concerned about opportunity, right? We've got to make sure that we get those things in place. And that's my offer is, book a strategy call. If you think that you have a marketing issue or a sales issue, let's figure it out. I'll tell you very straightforward. I mean, again, I've been through this a lot. If I can help you, if I can't, and that's your first step. That's how you get out of feeling stuck.
Okay. So for folks that might want to do something, or like, again, feeling that little bit of like they know like that I gotta do something.
Are you pushing me for a call to action? Is that what you're doing?
Well, I just want to dial in because, you did say, again, so the folks that are struggling to get to $1 million or still on the tools, again, we want to support you. That this, what we're doing isn't probably going to give you the most value, but we have a lot of tools here you can pull from those.
I'll just give those to you.
Yeah, but for the folks that are, again, you're like, you're kind of climbing out of that, you're off the tools, building a team, and you're kind of going from like, you've gone from 5 people to 10 or 15, and now you're going to like 20, 25, and the business is growing. This could be a really good solution. Yeah. And save a lot of heartache and a lot of pain.
Right.
Because I had, the thing that we were working on, like, I was frustrated because we didn't have this in place, and I was going through these relying solely on direct mail. And when that I had one lever, and it wasn't a great lever, and like when that didn't work, like,
now what?
We're kind of effed, It was just, and honestly, Jay, it was when it didn't work. And so again, for the folks out there, I know where you are. I was there like very recently. Like before I left the company last year, I was like dialing for dollars because we didn't have all these marketing things in place because Jay and I hadn't gotten it in place yet. Right. So I was literally like on the phone hammering like different people that we had worked for. I was doing some cold calling to get jobs so that we weren't like starving in the spring. So
it's pure hustle. Hustle.
And that's the thing that, like, that's the place where you don't want to be if you're going to 5 million. Because I can tell you from experience, it sucks. Like, that's not the way you want to raise jobs. Like, you want to raise money. So anyway, so people can check us out in school, or they can just reach out and we can have a one-on-one conversation with them if they're ready to do something, even though I don't think we've actually launched this yet, but we'll talk to anybody about it, right?
Well, we haven't launched it. Again, we serve we have a number of clients that we are working with them on their marketing at a higher level. We do have school that we're starting to launch our modules in for the guys that are just, again, wanting to get a little taste of marketing, get a good plan in place. Definitely not going to turn them away, but it's more of a group training. I'll give you the
Yeah.
resources. Come hang out. And anybody that needs a more in-depth solution and wants to get a good strategy in place, comment, we're available anywhere. Just give us a shout and we'll help you out.
All right, everybody, thank you for being with us. Jay and I are here every Friday, 3:00 Eastern, bringing the best stuff we've got to help you grow, scale, get more profitable, build your businesses. We have a deep conviction about serving contractors, and that's why we're here. So for those of you that were here, thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next week.